Hey guys, if you've noticed, I've been downsizing my collection and I've really dialed it in, less the Mustang GTD that's on its way. My peak, I was at like 25 vehicles. And today I want to talk about why I've been downsizing and why you probably shouldn't make that your dream to own so many cars. I just want to give you the why today, and I think it's going to be for reasons you're not going to expect, so stay tuned. Okay guys, quick pause in today's video for my own plug. I have started a podcast and I came from broke and drowning in debt, and what I've wanted to do is give back to you through telling people stories and telling my own story so that hopefully you can get some value from what I'm trying to share. I know there's a lot of guys with car channels and a lot of guys do some really cool stuff and have cool collections, but most of them you never really know how they did it or where they came from. So this is my attempt to try to add value to your life. If you could, go check it out. I'm on Spotify or also on YouTube. It's called What's Your Daily Drive? It's ironic because we're actually not talking about cars, we're talking about purpose, what drives you. So go check it out. Would love to get your feedback. You can search it here on YouTube or on Spotify, and I'll see you there. Hey guys, so you're gonna see a lot of Fords and Shelbys in my collection, and as you know, I do have a Mustang GTD on its way. I couldn't be more excited, and you better stick around because we have so much content, Miller, planned for that car. We have a 6,000 mile US road tour plan in it that we're coordinating with Ford itself to do. We've got big collaborations with some other YouTubers that want to do dumb shit in that car with us, so it's gonna be awesome. So I just hope that you stick around for that. But what I want to talk about today is kind of the history behind my experience with cars. My first car was actually a 1972 Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, and I was in high school. If you don't know what that is, we'll put a little picture up here for you. But it stemmed from my father and I always going to car shows as a kid, and I just became obsessed and enthralled with them. And as I got a little bit older, towards high school age, my neighbor had a 67 Camaro that was awesome. So my neighbor had this Camaro and it was yellow with black stripes and it had the handlebar shifter, and I became obsessed. I got one ride in that car when I was like a freshman in high school, and I was like, one day I want to own one of these. And I just remember him joking, we were in Los Angeles and he's turning a corner by the airport and you could see the gas gauge as we were driving, like go down. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing sucks gas, it's crazy. So, and he's telling me about how he had to stop all the time. And it was just the whole experience, the smells, the sounds, and how it felt to ride in it. So I actually built my own 67 Camaro from the ground up. It took about 4 years. That car actually recently was sold and went to Hawaii where the guy's daily driving it. So that's super cool. So Camaro was definitely my childhood dream car. I did have a 69 Camaro before that I sold when my father passed away. I'll get into that story another time. But I've also owned Audi R8s for a period of 8 years. I've owned multiple Lamborghinis. I've owned other Chevys. I've owned Porsches. I mean, you name it, I've had the gamut. I've never owned a hypercar. I don't desire one because I've also dialed in my ideal collection. Now, I want to talk to you a bit about what it's like to own so many vehicles, right? As kids, I was a Hot Wheels guy too. I loved Hot Wheels, and I think it kind of carried over into my adulthood when I started making decent money and I could afford this, and my cars would inspire me to build my business bigger and all this stuff. So I would like bring a trailer and eBay motors and all this stuff, and I'd see something cool and Miller would be like, you bought another car? And my wife would be like, I can't believe you'd bought another car. So I had an obsession, probably a problem. And I had some really cool stuff in here over the years. If you've been following me for a long time, you've seen the collection kind of vet out, especially on my Instagram. Now the Ford story real quick before we get into why I've been selling. This is a car I've been obsessed with since it came out in the early 2000s. I was driving, I think it was a PCH going up to Central California, and this like alien spaceship was coming up on my left side. I remember I was with my mom and my brother, and we're just driving, and I was like, what is that? And it was right when these came out, and there were two of them driving in procession up the highway, and they just came past us, and I was immediately hooked. Like, I was like, one day I want to own one of those. I didn't even know what it was. So fast forward, obviously, this has a really special place in my heart. I did have the opportunity to buy one of these about 7 years ago, and it was a point where I had a Lamborghini, a Viper, a 69 Camaro. My wife's like, no more cars. And I was negotiating it under $190,000. That was a big mistake, not buying it. So I finally got to a point where I said, hey, you know what? Before these go up anymore, babe, I'd like to buy one. This has been just the ultimate car that I've ever owned. This is 2 years of owning it now. I love it. I think I'm getting off track a little bit here, but I want to talk to you about this because this is really what started my Ford obsession. In 2019, I had a Viola Parsife Lamborghini Performante. I sold it to Kevin and Casey over at UGR. They ended up twin turboing it, and I think a woman bought it for her husband as like a anniversary gift. I was like, well, that's kind of crazy, but hey, that's great. It went to Texas and we would race it, so it was pretty awesome. So when I sold that, I was gonna buy one of those, but I'm like, you know what? What's this deal with Superformance and these continuation GT40s? And I bought this car. This car was an opportunity to buy it. I was like, yeah, I'll buy it. And this has completely changed my life. And if you know the story, I sold it once, it came back to me, it will never go again. So having these two cars, I mean, obviously this is like, in my mind, a mecca, and I didn't intend to be a Ford guy, but these are my favorite cars of all time. And then the Ford obsession kind of progressed because I've had the R8, the daily driver supercar, I've had the Lamborghini daily driver supercar, but I had never experienced anything like this. And I've done videos on this car. This became my daily driver Heritage Edition GT500, which I guess sounds kind of crazy. It's one of those cars though that's high horsepower, rear wheel drive, has a great look in the bonnet, has a great feel when you're driving it. So I just became obsessed with it. So this turned into my daily driver. I thought, hey, I got all these Shelbys and Fords coming in my garage. Like, maybe this will just add to content. And then that turned into, oh my God, I'm obsessed with this. So then I had an F350 Platinum, but I've been obsessed with Shelby trucks. So this just got added to the collection in the last 2 weeks. And I've already put over 2,000 miles on this, and I drove to Ford. That's for the GTD. I'm gonna tell you that story a different time. I'm obsessed with this. It's like a gentleman's truck. It's incredible. I love the upgrades to it. I love how it feels. I love that you don't see them very often, and it definitely fits with the theme. The reason I'm walking you through this before I get into all the nitty gritty is because this is kind of random that it became a Shelby Ford garage, but then I started digging into more of the history over the years and the story behind Ford, and I've really become obsessed with the story side as well, the racing history, the family history of how they still today are in control of the company. I mean, it's just crazy, and the community is super cool. So anyway, this is where we've landed, with the Mustang GTD coming soon, and that will be the last one. So why did I sell down to this? Miller knows well why I did this. Recently sent 5 more of my cars away. The 67 Camaro, a 71 Camaro I had built, my F350 Platinum, my Shelby Daytona Coupe, and my 67 Shelby GT500. And you're like, why are you getting rid of those? Well, owning lots of stuff over time can start to own you. And I've got a very busy life. I have 2 young kids. I've got a wife I love. We like to go places. We like to do things outside of just cars all the time. I also run a company. I've got some other ventures with the podcast now that we'll plug to you. So when you have lots of stuff, you also have to maintain lots of stuff. You have to wash cars. They constantly have maintenance. You have to schedule your oil changes. You need brake jobs. You need this, you need that, you need tires. And at this point for me, it's not even the expense of it. It's the fact that every week I was putting a car on a trailer, taking it to a shop to get maintained. And like this car even that I love so much, something would break on it and I would just get so frustrated and pissed off because just the week before I had maintained 2 other cars. So it just became so much of a burden in my life, believe it or not. And it took the fun out of it for a while. I know this is a first world problem, but also I couldn't decide what to drive. Like I would come in here, I'd be overwhelmed and I'd be like, you know, there'd be 10 cars in here. I'm like, I'm going to take my truck, you know? That's just something real I'm sharing with you. I know I'm kind of privileged to own this. Granted, I have built this from the ground up from being broke and drowning in debt. So I've earned this, but still, I want to share these sides of it because this is not something you hear people talk about a lot. That's really why I've started downsizing. I've freed up the capital to put into other investments, which will continue to grow, and have been helping out family, have been helping out the needs of people in Western North Carolina after the hurricane. So there's lots of good things I've been able to do. And also I've freed up a lot of just, I think, overall stress and pressure. When you have a lot of things too, you constantly feel this like little sense of anxiety. Like there's always a new to-do list. And that's how it felt in here. And surprisingly, the cars are a very small part of my overall scope of my life. Like I've got an animal rescue, I own a farm, I've got, you know, the business and all this stuff. So it was like, this was becoming like 40% of what I was doing. I still have 90% of other things to live in life. So anyway, I've decided to sell a lot of it. I wanted to share that with you recently. So I follow Supercar Ron. If you don't follow him, go check him out. We're actually gonna do a collaboration with him with the GTD in the near future when we do our cross country tour. But I saw him post something about it because Ron owns like, what, $20 million car collection? Yeah. Insane, right? And he's got some epic stuff. And he's been significantly downsizing too. And a lot of when he posted his reel, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same exact thing I'm living through. And I hadn't posted about it yet. And someone recently asked me to make this video because they were so curious as to why I was selling so many of my cars. So I would encourage you to go check out Supercar Ron and the reasons he's also selling his collection. And it was pretty much for the same reasons. I mean, the things that we want to enjoy to life doesn't always have to relate to cars. Like, he loves taking his old Bronco out with his family and going off in the back country and doing things with them. And, you know, but you can't do that when you've got 20 things to maintain all the time. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. No, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you at least took something out of it. And thank you for letting me just talk your ear off. I can do that. I don't want to feel like I'm killing dreams with the GTA garage, right? Because that's kind of like, I used to play it back in the day too. It was like, how many can I pile up and where can I put them, right? And there is something to be said about that. It is really cool. My advice would be to drive find a car you really love to drive and that you really love to look at. Like, it's always said, right? If I'm walking, if I park my car and I look back at it, like, it's meant to be, right? All my cars in here I do that with. So I would encourage you, and if you're not even in a position yet, even just to have a daily and to have one cool car, you don't need more than that. And if you want a giant GTA collection, then cycle through some cars, buy and sell some cars, and find the ones you really love and adore and that you want to drive and you want to just have in your life, and then keep those. And that's what I've done. So every car in here brings a smile every time I sit in it, even that truck. And I can't wait to see what the GTD brings smile-wise, because I think it's gonna be insane. Now we're good. Now I think we're good. Anyway, thank you for listening to my long rant on why I'm selling my collection. Really look forward to sharing some super cool content with you in the near future, not only with these, but especially with the GTD. So see you next time.